love, justice, respect, equality, kindness, compassion, equal in dignity, and rights. Hello and welcome to Equal in Dignity and Rights by the Wasmuth Center for Human Rights, home of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial. Today, you'll be introduced to another person of influence whose words are also etched into the stone of the Idaho Anne Frank Human Rights Memorial. At the end of this video, we'll prompt you with a few questions that will get you started in today's virtual journal entry. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer to what you write. You are human, equal in dignity and rights. This journal entry features an influencer who was a celebrity icon well before celebrities existed. The most photographed person of the 19th century was Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was born on February 14, 1818, in Cordova, Maryland, and passed away on February 20, 1895, at the age of 77. He was born enslaved at a time in which slavery was legal, and he died as a free man and as a widely celebrated abolitionist, a person who worked to end slavery. Slavery is a practice in which human beings are held captive and forced into labor against their will. In the past, countries that participated in slavery attacked indigenous lands and captured the people, transporting them vast distances from their homelands under horrendous conditions for the purposes of forcing them into a lifetime of brutal labor. The effects of slavery resulted in the dehumanization of multiple generations of the enslaved prisoners. It was reflected and reinforced in education, literature, science, religion, language, law, history, entertainment, and social and psychological behavior. We are still working to resolve many of the problems created during this cruel and unjust period of history. During the enslavement period in the United States, more than 60 million real people were taken from various regions during the transatlantic slave trade, with Africa being the primary source of captives and indigenous peoples from North and South America and the Caribbean. Slavery was a controversial issue from early colonization in the Americas through the American independence from the British, and it ended in 1865 following the American Civil War. Frederick Douglass was of mixed race heritage, African, indigenous, and white European. As a child, Frederick Douglass was raised by his free grandfather and enslaved grandmother until he was taken at the age of 6 to live on a plantation in rural Maryland. His mother occasionally visited Frederick until she died when he was 7 years old. The wife of the plantation owner took an interest in Frederick, and by the time he was 12, she began teaching him how to distinguish letters and sounds of the alphabet. Frederick continued his learning. He taught himself to read and write during a time when slaves were forbidden to be educated. The perpetrators of slavery believed, rightly so, that access to knowledge would equip the enslaved with the tools to speak on their own behalf of their inherent humanity and to take steps towards securing their freedom. After 1831, in most slave states, reading and writing and developing adequate speaking skills were deemed offenses that included punishment, torture, and/or death to those who attempted. As a teenager, Frederick Douglass was sent to work for another household where he was beaten and whipped mercilessly. One day, he fought back and was never whipped again. In one of his later books, he shared that it was a defining moment in his life and how the evils of slavery had transformed him from a peaceful person into a brute. At the age of 19, Frederick Douglass met a free black woman Anna Murray, who was instrumental in helping orchestrate his escape to freedom, and eventually would become his wife of 44 years. Together, they had 5 children. After escaping slavery, Frederick Douglass became a licensed preacher, known for his inspiring speeches on the evils of slavery and the humanity that exists in all people. He was connected with prominent abolitionists of the time: Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, William Lloyd Garrison, John Brown, George de Baptiste. Douglass and his wife helped escaping slaves by serving as a lighthouse on the Underground Railroad, a network of secret routes and safe houses used by enslaved African Americans to escape into free states and Canada. When he was 27, Douglass traveled to Great Britain. He inspired his English and Irish supporters for his efforts to start the North Star, an abolitionist publication, making the case to end slavery. During the American Civil War from 1861 through 1865, Frederick Douglass worked with President Abraham Lincoln in recruiting black soldiers to support the war effort. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 freed the enslaved. Slavery officially ended in 1865 with the 13th Amendment. Frederick Douglass was the first Black American to be nominated as a vice presidential candidate in 1872 and in 1888. Douglass became involved with the women's rights movement and asserted that women were full human beings and deserved the right to vote. They worked together for universal human rights. After his first wife's death, Frederick Douglass married Helen Pitts, who was a member of the women's suffrage movement. Through his writings, speeches, life journey, and work, Frederick Douglass became a hero in the abolitionist movement. He had lived the experience of being enslaved and is remembered as a champion of universal human rights. No man can put a chain about the ankle of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened about his own neck. Frederick Douglass. Now it's your turn. No need to wait a single moment. Through the Schoology portal, we've left a space for you to record your thoughts. You may want to pause the video after each question to give yourself some time to write. There are a total of 3 questions. Here are the questions to help get you started. What do you think Frederick Douglass meant when he said, "No man can put a chain about the ankle of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened about his own neck"? Slavery was a devastating chapter in history that caused grave injustice in American society. What serious issues today could be a direct result of this enslavement of 60 million people? Frederick Douglass was a champion of the first round of civil rights policies and laws in the United States. What laws do you believe need to be introduced or changed to promote civil rights today? Take your time. Remember, it's your journal, your diary. You can be honest with your thoughts. Just as Frederick Douglass teaches us through his work, never forget how we can positively change the world when we are all equal in dignity and rights.